Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. I'm Katie and we are going for a Beyond the Box with the April Scrawlrbox. Before we get started, and if you haven't done so already, please make sure you're subscribed to the channel just so you don't miss out on any more videos like this. With that being said, let's crack on, shall we? With the April Scrawlrbox, we had a rather delicious set of Daleroni watercolours, and those were the Aquafine range. And just to refresh your memories, we had Ultramarine, Hookah's Green, we had a Crimson, which I can't pronounce its first name, a Chinese White, a Raw Sienna and a Lemon Yellow. Accompanying the box, we had a Derwent water brush, 2 Chinagraph pencils, one in black, one in white, and some Scrawlrbox own brand paper. The theme for that box was Birds of a Feather, and I've decided to continue that on today. My chosen subject is a little egret, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, and I used a reference from a stock photo website, and I'll leave a link to the picture I used in the description as well, just so you can have a little look. The background on this is what makes the bird stand out, so I went in and mixed a ultramarine alongside with the raw sienna to create this muddy colour. But don't panic, it is just a base and it is to add some form to our feathered friend here. You'll also notice I used the Chinagraph pencils, and the black one was used for the bird's bill and legs, and the white one was to add some feather details in there, and you saw some of them on camera and then some of them are going to just be a surprise. To add a little bit more richness to the background, I went in there with a more blue version of that muddy colour in the background and began to layer it up. I chose to mix this particular colour using the ultramarine because it does tend to be a granulator, so I was hoping those colours would split ever so slightly, and they did, and created a nice bit of texture and movement there. Now, I do have a confession to make. I just couldn't bring myself to use that water brush. I appreciate it being in there and they are useful for travelling, but whilst I'm in my studio at home, I can at least take advantage of using my own brushes and having a little bit control of the brush sizes that I use and the brush types too. I found with these paints, because I did squeeze them into a ceramic palette which has a little lid on it as well, they actually re-wetted really nicely, and I only topped up 1 or 2 colours which were running low. All of the others though did come back to life quite nicely. However, there is not a use of all of the colours here because this is a white bird, so I didn't see the need to. I don't end up using the white because I wanted to use negative space to create this form. I'm just not really used to using white paint to paint something white. I'd perhaps use it to make something a little more opaque, but if I want to do lighter shades, I just use a much weaker dilution of the colour I've mixed and gradually build up the layers there. There's no right or wrong, both create different tones, but you can have different textures by using the white paint or not, and it's entirely preference and what you want for your piece. But for me personally, I don't really use white very often. For the bird's wings, again, I've just used very muted colours here, and it's quite a contrast to the picture I did originally with the Scrawlrbox on the opening. That was a really bright, colourful peacock, and I wanted to see if I could create something a little bit more muted with this colour palette, and I'm pleased to say I am. It's quite a well-rounded set that you were sent. I'm not actually sure if it's on the Scrawlrbox website just yet, but if you didn't get this one, I'd wait for it to appear in the shop and snap it up, because you do get quite a lot of good value items. For the body of the bird, I did use, again, a similar muddy colour, but I introduced a little bit of the Hookah's Green in there and a little bit more of that raw sienna. Now, I obviously wanted to have some tonal differences in there, but I didn't really want it to be completely lost within the background either, so just adding a slight hint of another colour in there just makes things stand out, but kind of subtly as well at the same time. I chose not to do as much wet and wet technique as I normally do with watercolours, because I just wanted to focus mainly on getting a pigment down there and creating the textures with what I'd got on the page. This also allowed a little bit easier layering, and I just wanted to see how these would work if I didn't use a wet and wet technique. To make the bird stand out further, I introduced a higher concentration of what I'd mixed for the background and just added a subtle outline around the bird and then smoothed it out a little bit with a wet clean brush. I found these paints were really good for lifting, so anything that you think might be permanent, to a certain extent you can remove that with a brush. I'm not sure if it would be as effective with layers, but if you just put one area down and wanted to lift it, I can't see there being a massive problem there. Perhaps with the crimson colour, because the reds do tend to stain a little bit more, but with the ultramarine and with it being a bit of a granulator, you can kind of lift quite a lot of that up. I've found anyway. As I'd done the feathers on the bird, you'll also notice those areas I had gone over with that white Chinograph pencil, and I actually do quite like using it now. It has grown on me, however, the exact opposite has happened to the pencil, and that has pretty much shrunk down to a stub now. And yeah, the lead did break quite a lot in it, but I might not be so... I don't know, I might not be quite as miffed next time I have one, because it did work quite well with these paints. The black pencil, on the other hand, still pretty good. It's only really broke once or twice, and I have mentioned as well I am quite heavy-handed, but it sharpened and it kept quite a nice point, which is why I decided to give this guy a bit of an outline. I thought it'd just be nice to add a little bit more form, and I could ever so slightly add a little bit of tone in there as well, with just a very light amount of pressure and tilting the lead on its side. But for the most part it worked really well to add a nice outline, so I can't really grumble at that. It's a little difficult to tell if it would do a wax resist, and there's not really much point doing it when you have white paper with white paint either. There just wouldn't be any point there really, but if I do have a chance I might try it on some black paper at some point in the future. All in all, continuing on with the birds of a feather theme, which is really difficult to say, I'm quite happy with this second edition and what I've managed to achieve with this box, and creating a different, I guess, tone and palette with it. I suppose I'd better mention as well, Witchy Things to Draw will be back next week, but I wanted to just get this one done because I know you guys enjoy a good old Beyond the Box. I just want to say a massive thank you for watching, and I do hope you've enjoyed this video and found it useful for your Scrawlrbox pursuits. There should be some lovely videos on screen which I think you'll enjoy, so why not give a few of them a click, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye!